which is a creative communications agency that campaigns and develops and promotes white colour, but also develops original projects either in-house or in partnership to reshape the single narrative that misrepresents diverse communities, and Grenfell is a classic example of that, and something that is still continuing. In terms of tonight, Grenfell Tower is timely because it continues to be a running story for the wrong reasons. The fact that we have to fight to keep it in the headlines is a travesty for a tragedy that's taken the lives of 71 people, and yet those who have been left behind are homeless, are experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, are experiencing labels that have no place being associated with them whatsoever, stigma. I think we have to remind ourselves that the absence of care, absence of compassion, and yet they're fighting, as we all are, to keep the stories and the realities of what's happened to them, what's happened to those who are volunteers, those who are residents, those who knew, those who passed, alive. What we're going to do today is a screening of the ground at Grenfell, which was directed by Lindy Pinto Juszynski, and I'm also pleased to say that one of the participants in the film is actually today, Swarzy, but we'll find out more about all of them later on. Also, the fact that we're going to have different poetic responses as well. I'm going to have one shortly.
1. Going back to my parents, the Hammersmith and City line is not the same joyride it used to be. After Westbourne Park it goes murder, 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 sell, sell, sell. When I get off at Wood Lane, I look over my shoulder, remember how I took it in the first time with the awe of a child unaware they had started spelling oppression a different way. 2. As a child, home was more than just 4 walls. It was the roads and fences that kept us easily herded. I used to think the best thing was the sense of community. It might just be that they decided not to house us 10 minutes away. 3. It is possible to wake feeling worthless. It is possible that your privilege will have protected you from this. It is possible you will understand the words insidious and systemic like never before. It is possible you will feel anger in every emotion and know only calm gets the desired response. 4. While you continue to portray us as uneducated thugs in the press, we will open our cupboards, wardrobes and doors. I know how I spell evil. I know how I spell pride.
Imagine your whole life contained in one room and everything wiped out. Everything.
Kensington and Chelsea, so you're either in Notting Hill Gate in a rich house or you're in a building like Grenfell. To just think like, maybe 2 days ago I walked past them and now they're gone.
My first reaction was, why has this happened? How has it happened?
I didn't sleep from that day onwards. They actually need to sort out the surrounding blocks because it's traumatized them as well.
Everybody is talking about the community coming together, but you need professional services to be able to deal with those issues because they're not going to go away anytime soon. I mean, this is something that's going to affect people for the rest of their lives.
No one's really thought about them as people, it's just as statistics.
The survivors, and their families, like I said, we're never going to forget what's happened, ever.
What came first for you, the volunteering or the actual film? And what compelled you to be involved with it?
Well, we initially were volunteering and we got together with a friend of ours called Lindy Pinto Juszynski, and she's the director of the film. Now, we had a conversation and we were talking about how people were being portrayed in some light, and it was just contradictory to what we were seeing when we were actually volunteering. Earlier this year we were doing a documentary on the closure of youth services, and I think Unison did an independent study. It's called The Damage, and I think they found out there was about 350 youth services that closed over the past 2 years. So with that in mind, and yeah, just talking about how we wanted to do justice for the community, we decided like we'd speak to some of the volunteers, and then if any of the survivors were willing to speak to us, we thought it's good to kind of get their point of view.
I suppose I didn't realise I was a volunteer until I started volunteering, I suppose, because I'd woken up on the Wednesday morning of the fire feeling very guilty, because obviously I'd slept through, most of it, as I assume most of us had, and when we turned the news on, it was just headline after headline. But what was really strange is that they didn't announce very soon where the building was. For me anyway, it felt I was like, where is this building? Because it's just a tower block, it could be anywhere. And so when I found out it was West London, it could have been anywhere, but I just put a WhatsApp group together with a few friends and said, oh my gosh, have you seen this? And people were, of course, let's try and do something together. So that evening about, East London is like Forest Gate, Manor Park, Stratford. I went down to Forest Gate to a local church where my friend was, and he was gathering donations. And I said, if you've got a space in the minibus, I need to get that space. So here's me in the minibus with like Capri Suns and a bag of washing powder, and even what people gave kind of reveals that people didn't realise the seriousness of it, because people weren't going to go back home washing their clothes after this, but people just gave and donated what they had. So we're in the car and we just saw an orange glow, and I still didn't realise that the building was on fire, and it's until we got there and I looked up and I just thought, how is this a fire within 10 hours, 11 hours, because we didn't reach until 10:30 and we didn't leave until 11:30. And if the fire started at 1:30 in the morning, you can imagine it's been going all day. So, yeah, I kind of just threw myself in, to be honest, and then just got the label volunteer.
How soon after the fire did you make the film, and how did you negotiate that? Because sometimes people, one personally, and how because it's nuanced, it's still raging, everything's still raw. How did you navigate that?
So we were volunteering for the first few days, and then maybe like the third day in, that's when we had the discussion. And we decided we were going to get just the local people's opinions on it at first, because we didn't want to impose on anybody or make anyone feel uncomfortable. But then Zoe and David, who were in the film, they reached out to one of my friends and actually said I wanted to volunteer on my side of the story. So we got in contact with them. About a month later, we got in contact with Bilal. And we got to talking to him, and then he said he'd like to get involved, and he really was passionate about getting some of the young people that he knew that had helped out in the fire to speak to us as well. Because, like he said, everybody's usually, they're misrepresented, they're spoken down to, they're stereotyped. So he really said, I can do it, but as long as they can come and speak to us as well. And he brought about 5 or 6 guys down so we could speak to them as well.
And how did you make the connection?
On Twitter, actually. So Nendi reached out to me on Twitter and said, I can't actually remember what she said, but by that time I'd already done an interview with the BBC, and I told that guy off, I shouldn't have said what I said. I basically said, it's in the hands of people like yourself to show a balanced narrative, and everyone was like, yeah, and I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? But then afterwards, Nendi got in touch with me on Twitter, and I thought it was linked to the BBC, so when I sat down and filmed it, I thought, oh, it's only an interview. And then when I saw that it was part of a documentary, when I came for the first screening, I was like, what? How did that happen?
This incredibly difficult situation, but it's almost like through the 8-degree separation, that this wave, this synchronicity, isn't it, about, like with death, you have beginnings, and the fact that people still saw it as an opportunity to tell their story, and you provide them with a platform, which is why obviously the documentary form is so important, and also the role of social media in terms of informing people. And the thing is, I wanted to talk about, like we were said in the opening, about narratives and whose narratives are represented and the hierarchy of narratives. And I noticed that, this is more for you, Adrianne, in terms of the film, we were left with the optics to see the cultural and ethnic diversity of the people who were affected And I noticed even those who were commentating, very few specifically said race. I think if anything, it was necessarily yourself who was more direct about it. When really, that's the reality. You can see it, from the commentary, and it's not named the unnameable papers that played a part in it. But thankfully, the film helped forge a parallel path, so you had more than one optic to relate to. How conscious were you of that, in terms of rather than banging people over the head, you wanted them to see and get there themselves?
I guess it happened organically, because like us, we didn't really think about it. I only asked you where you was from maybe last month. But yeah, I know people that live in the area who are white. I know people that are black. I know people that are completely, complete different mix. So I just thought it was really strange. Even people I personally knew, they made comments like, "Oh, it's just Somalis in the block, or just Moroccans." I'm like, it's a completely diverse area. So I just found it really weird that people would still, even when we went to Brighton for the Labour Party conference, it was like, they were really willing to help, and they didn't understand that people didn't care about it anymore. And it's just, in West London, there's just a different type of community than there is probably outside of London or even in other areas of London. So I think we didn't consciously think, okay, let's make this diverse. That's just what happened.
I mean, the thing is, the impact of the film, what were you anticipating, and what has the reality been? Because obviously it's been on one hell of a roller coaster ride since you made the film.
My main concern was just get everybody's story out, whether you're a volunteer, survivor, local resident, just even if it's just archived, because we live in a very instant social media world where everything is just like Snapchat, Instagram. It lasts 24 hours and it's gone. It's old news. So I just thought we have to start archiving these stories again. And the result has been overwhelming, but it's worth it in the end.
It has, because the media, obviously you didn't give them too much time to run down a particular path of negativity. But I noticed, obviously, when you were on Channel 4 News, and then all of a sudden you're thrust in the spotlight and you had to make the commentary, and I noticed the tone changed from when the first happened to when the 5-minute clip was shown, for example, on Channel 4 News, and then everyone ran off, the herd mentality after that. Yeah. What can you say about what impact the film has had on the media narrative since it's come out, because it's been profiled quite a bit, if any?
They seem to have more empathy, a little bit more. But even when we was working with the editors there, the reason they didn't show many of the survivors in the Channel 4 edit is because they were still trying to protect them. And they were very cautious. They called up lawyers so many times just to get permission, to make sure they had permission to screen it. Whereas other news outlets, they were a bit more kind of ruthless. They were just trying to get views, trying to sell. Whereas now, I think everybody's trying to be a bit more careful.
Yeah, I suppose with the footage, it's really funny because of course people just went down with their phones, didn't they? So people were sending me loads of Snapchat footage and bits and bobs, and it's sometimes that organic sort of feel to it that's quite nice, because like Reece said, it did feel 3 days. It was like, where are these people? Where are the council and the authorities, and why is it that we've been left to our own devices? And then when they did turn up, it was like, well, you're a bit late, and it's like we've kind of got it now. So, but when you do have a Snapchat footage, I hope that when people look back from this, there's another narrative there other than the Guardian's 71 people, or other than the number is so sensitive, and you can look at the building and know there was more than 71 people. The minute you start talking about hundreds, people are like, what? That you think hundreds died? Yes, of course I think hundreds died, but I don't, if we don't talk about that, then all we have in 10 years' time is the number 71 or the number 80, and it's not a true reflection. So I'm really grateful for a film like that, so that in years to come people can look back and get the true narrative, and if it's a Snapchat video, or it's going to be a lot more reliable because it was someone behind that camera showing it. So it's quite funny, how people are saying social media, but it was quite prevalent on that day actually.
But also, you're saying about the different narratives. Another one that you, in that short space of time, you really shed the light on. I think it's played an important part in terms of the existing tragedy debate around mental health and around mental well-being, as if this just happened and there are people walking wounded and there isn't a wider impact. Again, that it felt like with the film that it was a form of therapy, especially so soon after, being able to just have this space to express. But I noticed that you've continued that discussion online, isn't it? Particularly around, for young people, around mental health. Why is that important for you?
I feel that it's something that literally is still taboo. Even though loads of people are still trying to push it to the forefront, it is still a taboo subject, it's still very sensitive. People, the other guys that, they weren't actually in the tower, but they were local residents, you can see that they're completely scarred by it. But, they're young men and they don't know how to address it, they don't know where to go for support. They've been told, go and see a GP, but that's still a daunting experience for them.
But the thing is, that sense of abandonment was so prevalent in the film for me. This real understanding, the sense of community and what that means, and community in action, and yet very little in terms of the state responsibility and due diligence and duty of care. I mean, one of the few politicians who's hit the right, I think, note on this, David Lammy, MP for Tottenham, about his Dickensian, what's going on, and the fact that the onus of responsibility has just been dumped on the residents, dumped on those directly affected, and they've just been left. And do you feel that's still the case? It's like you're having to almost wake up every day and fight to keep it on the agenda.
Yeah, like you do, because if not, who's going to do it? They're not going to do it, so you've kind of have to do it. But about subjects about mental health, what's so funny is just the two words, when you put them together, like mental health, like you have physical health, you have sexual health, you have mental health. And so when I started getting really, like just now, and I just cry, like my golden rule is I'm going to stop apologising for crying, because crying, you shouldn't feel sorry for crying. It's a normal reflex, it's a normal thing that you can do. And if it makes other people cry, it's probably because you've got the same heart inside of you that you have in me. Do you know what I mean? And so that's when number one that I've learned, don't apologise for us, it's alright to cry. But just breaking down that the stigma attached to mental health, and when other people gather around you and say, I know what that feels like, you're not talking to a formal document, or you're not talking to someone who doesn't understand you. And for me, I didn't realise the power of community. I didn't realise that boxing things together was therapy, It was a group of people seeing that and thinking, that shouldn't happen, and I feel a bit lost right now, and that was mental health therapy, but I didn't realise that until 6 months on. So.
But also it's about being given the opportunity, not just permission, but given the opportunity to speak, and actually being asked the question. I think your documentary clearly shows that you created an opportunity, and you filled that vacuum, enabled people to have a safe space to express. I want to open it up to the floor now. Thank you.
And I was going to apologise if anyone is upset by how angry and political these poems are, but in the spirit of what was said earlier about not apologising for crying, I think people are entitled to be angry and political about what happened at Grenfell. There you go. So this first one is bring it home. Bring help, bring fire engines, bring water, bring air, bring stretchers, bring ambulances, bring us round from sleep and out to safety. Bring food, bring clothes, bring blankets, bring camp beds, bring phone chargers so we can find our friends and family and tell them that we've made it. Bring shoulders to cry on, bring arms to embrace, bring ears to listen, bring hands to hold, bring the strength to go on. Bring news, bring hope, bring solidarity, bring community, bring whatever you can. Bring yourself, bring questions, demand answers, bring the letters written and the warnings given, and bring the inadequate replies. Bring the rules, bring the regulations, bring the budgets, bring the decisions, and allow everyone to examine them. Bring your pain, and your despair. Blend it in solidarity with others, bring it to the boil, bring it into the inquiry room and into the corridors of power, bring the truth out into the open, bring justice, bring charges, bring this system down.
I live around the corner, I was there on the night, and for me, poetry was like writing's very cathartic, whatever the word is, cathartic, yeah. And just, I've always sort of wrote in terms of just being able to release or make sense of what's going on around me. This first one, I'm not really ready out, so I'll go with this one. It was kind of just the procedure of processing, and I also do a lot of like creative writing workshops with a lot of young people or just people from the area to help them like release or make sense of what's going on for them. This piece is called Injustice. Have you ever felt the overwhelming feeling of knowing there will be no justice? What is justice supposed to look like? The fact it will never be served for hundreds of thousands around the world, for those who survived atrocities, for the children and grandchildren of those lost for whole communities, for the concept of reparations being the joke of the elite's table, that they will mock and be humoured by our pleas and cries, for those who witness injustice before their eyes, for those alive to bear witness. Do they care for witnesses, trying to sweep away witnesses with a poisoned brush, trying to silence and stifle truth, trying to break hearts and deteriorate those mourning and with hurt in their souls? Injustice, trying to stomach and let the powers that be, not wanting to give them power, but seeing ourselves as powerless. When the reality of injustice dawns that they will get away. They will get away with all of the debris and the pain for all the losses caused. For those they haunt, they will roam free, make money from their gold and diamond mining money trees. They will keep on going, with no humanity in their bones, with no love in their hearts, with no compassion, no mercy. When will Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim make them pay? When will those unjust pockets full of paper made from bones, when will they pay for making money from the dead? Big business, when will they pay? Why is there never any justice? Bombs in Gaza, Iraq, Afghanistan, telling us fake numbers of collateral damage. No truth given when clad in a building, burning innocent people, the elderly and children to their death. Not disclosing the death toll, threatening those who want to expose them. Has any number of deaths ever been accurate when they've hid the numbers of deceased diaspora or colonial subjects? Is the news ever accurate when they tell us how many died in boats off the shores of Greece, how many the US and Britain bombed, how many Israel blew to smithereens, how many more will mourn, lose their homes, be displaced, how many more will be overwhelmed, how many more will have to bear witness to just another death, another fall, another cry, another crime, another injustice, no justice. What is justice? A naivety of the hopeful, the heartful. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you and for showing the film. Thank you for the space, for being here and for listening. I have a really big lump in my throat, which I've had since the beginning, and the first time I performed this, which is something I wrote pretty much as soon as I could feel anything after it had happened. So I think I just felt sick and silent for a couple of days, and then I wrote this. And I'll try and get through it. Grenfell Tower, our saddest hour. Nothing can express the pain, the shock, the sorrow that so many loved ones will not see tomorrow. Yet too, there is overwhelming gratitude and pride in the heroism of those who braved the hell inside. There is beauty in London's outpouring of love and unity, a coming together for the victims of our community. On a makeshift wall lies poignant commemoration. Flowers and cars lay at the feet of devastation. What now? Now there must be a decisive reckoning. Cry a rage for change that's deafening. No more can they neglect to protect the poor. We demand and must have so much more. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone who's contributed to tonight's event. Thank you for standing up and sharing your truth so candidly, for being so open-hearted, even though it's been difficult and heartbreaking. And thank you to all of you for coming and sharing this moment with us. One of the reasons we wanted to do this event was because we think it's important to keep the conversation about Grenfell going. We understand that it's an ongoing crisis and that all the survivors and people affected by the fire still need our support. To that end, we decided to partner with Rugby Portobello Trust, which is a community charity that's based just down the road. They've actually been operating for 130 years in the area, which is quite impressive. And that meant that when the fire struck, they were in a really good position to help people. They had so many relationships in the community, and they were a trusted friend to so many people, and it meant that they were a good point of contact in order to distribute resources and funds. So they've actually managed to distribute £10 million worth of public funds that have been donated, and £1.6 million for government funding. And so, yeah, as I say, we're going to be partnering with them, and what that means is that every event that we run at Second Home Holland Park, we're going to be asking all attendees to pay a £3 or £4 donation, or more if they want. That'll be a minimum, and all of that money in an ongoing way will be going to Rugby Portobello Trust, and it'll add up and hopefully make a difference. So thanks again to you all, and hope to see you again soon.
It was a great event, really well put together, really supportive in its atmosphere, and it really, I think it kind of facilitated people to say what they think and how they feel. And, you know, maybe some people, maybe the establishment, whatever, want people to slowly forget about Grenfell Tower, but they're not going to, and it's because of events like this that they're not going to.
I think this event was great, it was really needed. For me, one of the main parts for me is like allowing people to hear poetry, or allow people to hear a way of how other people articulate and express what they've seen, what they've experienced, and also just like the way that they feel towards it, and allow people to like relieve their trauma, because we're all traumatized by this reality, whether we were like there on the night or, you know, just by even knowing. So I think it's mainly allowing people to hear. Yeah, so overall I think it was a really great event.
It was obviously really amazing for me to see the film, and I really wanted to see it for quite a long time, so I knew about it already. I think for me, just collectively, the voices really and the responses. I think poetry is so powerful, and I think the creative response is really healing. So I think just collectively, the whole thing was really valuable.
I think the event today was fantastic. I think it's always fantastic when people come together to have a conversation, especially about topics like this. It gives people the opportunity to engage in the conversation, and everyone has something to add, you know, and I'm always learning. So I think today was fantastic. The poetry, the film, the tears, locals, non-local, tonight was brilliant.